How was Cataclysm for you? In a recently posted post-mortem, In a recently post-mortem, lead quest designer Dave Kosak asked players for questions regarding the Cataclysm experience. Joining us with some of the answers is Scott Hawks. Now, Scott, if Cataclysm was one thing, it was a massive questing overhaul, which a lot of focus went into revamping the leveling questing experience. What were Dave's thoughts on how this affected Endgame?
Well, they were happy with how it changed the leveling experience, but when it came to the endgame, they didn't realize just how much work they were going to have to do on this. They thought there would be some zones that needed a lot of work and then just some that just needed a little tweaking. And as he put it, that basically each time they went into a zone that they thought only needed a little bit of work, they found out it needed a lot of work. And so the whole quest overhaul became a massive job. And that just spread them so thin that they didn't devote as much time to the last 5 levels as they did to the rest of the game.
Well, and I think what's really ironic here is that if you think about how much time went into the old zones, players have never felt more like the game is in a state of hub cities and never really leaving once they hit level 85. I actually just kind of felt like I'd just finally flown over Undercity for the first time, and that took a lot of work. Does this make pretty much what was most of the majority of time spent on Cataclysm production waste?
Well, if you look at they talked about they had something like Blizzard talked about they had something like a 10% retention rate for people trying the game. So you can see that they were like, right, we need to make this experience more interesting to keep players. Now the problem was that all of us have been sitting around after Wrath of the Lich King and been waiting a long time for new content. So as Cataclysm was coming up, and let's face it, all the trailers and everything, it looked great. We were really looking forward to that new, big, heavy-hitting, exciting content. And then when it came out, there wasn't as much at the top end as we really hoped.
Well, and for max level players, what we did get was we got to see a lot of storyline going on with Thrall and his own story, but again, it felt so linear that players didn't really feel the need to go back and repeat it. For another example, maybe Alliance players didn't really feel that connection with Thrall, and it didn't feel like a storyline that we were a part of. It didn't feel like an expansion we were a part of at max level. It felt like we were more participating in. Do you think that necessarily kind of could take away from what the gamers got as their endgame experience?
Yeah, I think what happened was I know Thrall's one of the big favourites of the story team at Blizz, and you know he's a great character. But on the Alliance side, you saw Rin basically Varian being made to look a bit of a chump at times, to be honest, and not really anything sort of like powering the Alliance through.
Oh no, he did a great job just standing around in Stormwind. He did great.
He looked really shiny.
He did.
Yeah, that was, well, you know, that was wonderful. but when you're sitting there watching Thrall like get all the glory, and I like Thrall as a character, I do. But if you've seen all of Thrall's story once, when you go through on another character, not only is it linear, you can't avoid it. You've got to see it again, and it's going to get tiresome. And that was a problem with a lot of the zones. If you play through it once, it got boring.
It takes away from the uniqueness of every player getting to play through in a different way when you have to play through the same story every single time for every single character.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what happened. I think that's they talk about that being something they really learned, that because there was no. If you started at A in one of those zones, it was all the way through to Z, or Z as I would say. That was how you had to go. It was all one. You couldn't go in, come out, and all the rest of it. You had one line, one story, and you had no option in how you experienced it. And that's something they say they're going to try and change for Mr. Pandaria.
Well, phasing was another thing that we had seen utilized really heavily, especially in the Hydral model, and they kind of learned from that and figured out that it was kind of a pain for players and came up with a better model for the Firelands dailies. Do you think they're going to take the lessons that they learned here and apply them to more content in Mist of Pandaria?
Yeah, definitely. That was stated that that's going to be the case. They realised that they went really heavy-handed. I think he describes the use of phasing towards a story as like a sledgehammer. It makes it work, but it's very definite in the way it does it. So people running around in the same party, you know, go, oh, where are you? Oh, you're 2 steps ahead in this. Okay, you'll have to wait for me to catch up, and then we can actually see each other. It was just too much. Phasing went for something that was something cool to something that was just everywhere, and it got in the way of enjoying the game. So hopefully they've learned the lesson, and Mr. Pandaria should see something that's a bit more subtle and a little less heavy-handed.
Well, the final thing they addressed here in this postmortem was the concept of legendaries. We had 2 legendaries this expansion. We saw one for casters, mages, mages. And then we also saw one that was specifically for rogues. Was this class-specific legendary model accepted well, and are we going to see more of it in the future?
From what I've seen, rogues seem to really enjoy going along a quest line that really emphasised their character and the sort of feel of their character, using abilities and knowing how to use your class in order to get this legendary. So it wasn't just you go along and do your raid and something drops and that's the end of it. You had to go out and prove that you could be a rogue, and it was quite challenging for quite a few people. So that worked well, and hopefully they're going to carry that on when they get tanks. They get
feral druids, feral druids.
I'll just tanks. Warriors. That's warriors. Hopefully Mr. Pandaria will see some more legendaries, and it'll be a warrior tank legendary, please.
It's clearly going to become this spiraling out of control of every class demanding to have some legendary at some point. But we can only hope that they give it to feral druids, because we know we all need one and can't equip any of them yet. So get on it, Blizzard. Mr. Pandaria, feral legendary, please. Thank you guys. Thank you, Scott, for all your information. For all of your World of Warcraft news and information, be sure to catch Legendary every Thursday at 8 p.m. And for all of your gaming news, keep your browser right here to Gamebreaker TV.